So we have something known as yolk sac tumor, embryonal carcinoma, Brenner, Struma ovary and Krukenberg. So this is part 3 of the ovarian neoplasm. Yolk sac tumor is also known as endodermal sinus tumor. I don't have nothing to explain the concept wise. I am trying to make it as much understandable as possible. So this yolk sac tumor will originate from the primitive germ cells. So the primitive germ cells can have something, can look like something like a small glomeruli, so which are known as Schiller dual bodies. So this yolk sac tumor has an elevated alpha fetoprotein because we know the primitive fetal liver and the primitive GIT of the fetus produces alpha fetoprotein. So yolk sac tumor, when it is that which is arising from the primitive germ cells, then the hormone is also the same. So therefore there is an increase in the alpha fetoprotein. What do we know about the embryonal carcinoma? Embryonal carcinoma is also arises from the primitive germ cells. So primitive germ cells. This embryonal carcinoma arising from the primitive germ cells. The primitive germ cells can give rise to any part of the fetus. So it can form a placenta, it can form the amniotic sac, or it can form the fetal bones, it can form the fetal organs, anything that can form. But when it contains the placenta as an important component, then we call it as the embryonal carcinoma. Therefore, here it releases alpha fetoprotein as well as LDH, as well as HCG. So HCG is released by the placenta. So therefore the embryonal carcinoma has a major component, that is the placenta. Therefore when alpha fetoprotein along with HCG is present, we diagnose it as embryonal carcinoma. It is extremely undifferentiated and it is very aggressive. What do we know about the Brenner tumor? When Brenner tumor as it starts with B, we need to remember 2 B's. One is that it is benign. And the other one is that it is bladder-like epithelium. So the Brenner tumor which arises in the ovaries will have a bladder-like epithelium. So previously we saw that the mucinous as well as the serous adenoma, which has the intestinal-like epithelium and the fallopian tube-like epithelium. Here it is bladder-like epithelium. What about the Struma ovary? Struma ovary is also an ovarian neoplasm. It is benign, but it releases thyroid hormones. What do we know about the Krukenberg tumor? The Krukenberg tumor is that when there is a tumor of the gastric tumor and it metastasizes and it goes to the ovaries. So the metastasis happens hematogenously. So hematogenous spread. Hematogenous gastric metastasis is Krukenberg's tumor. So here typically we will be having a signet ring cells, that is the mucin which is be presenting in the cell, which will give rise to a signet ring appearance. So this is part 3 of the ovarian neoplasms, and this is in brief, and this is what you should know mostly for the NBME exams.